touching back onto deployment and those kind of experiences, are you able to talk about any situations that might be of emotional inspiration?
Watching how the unit was able to maintain its flexibility, to complete the mission, to do everything that was asked of it, regardless of whether or not we were spread thin. I mean, ultimately, our job was to start shutting down Ghazni province. And this was basically right around the time of the Afghan surge, but the purpose of the surge was then to shrink the footprint and hand over security to host nation forces. And well, of course, we know in hindsight, but in the end, the things that I look back at as far as being proud of, in terms of what we were able to accomplish, was an entire generation of Afghan girls were able to go to school. We helped build an Afghan civil society that existed for long enough to, secure a future for Afghanistan, at least at the time. And many of those people were able to get out in the end. But I think I want to be careful on this topic.
Yeah. No, 100%. I was considering asking next what that feeling is for you, looking at the way it's occurred, but I think in many ways you answered it with, you allowed a generation of women to go to school. So for whatever is said, for whatever is thought about, that is a fundamental beauty that cannot be taken away.
Well, and from a security perspective, I mean, the number one goal was always to prevent another attack on the homeland. And one thing that, we can all be proud of, regardless of the final outcome in Afghanistan, is that it was never used again to harbor terrorists who attacked the United States homeland. So, that is something that, we've all been able to walk away with, and regardless of different individual feelings about the outcome. I mean, ultimately, that's something that the U.S. military was able to accomplish while it was there.
Well, let's touch on then that idea of, as a soldier, your emotions have to, and your thoughts have to be put to a side to an extent, right? You have to serve the purpose of the military, regardless of your opinion on the decisions on who's on top. For example, who's the president? It doesn't matter. You make commitment. So can you tell us a little bit about why that perspective is there? Because that is an American ideal.
Yeah, I mean, I've served now under 3 different administrations, and ultimately, when we take our oath to the United States Constitution. And one of the things that we truly do inculcate in the cadets, both at the United States Military Academy at West Point, and then, when I was a commander and a 2, we make it very clear that we are not political servants, right? We serve the Constitution. We have a clear chain of command that ends with a civilian, that the separation of powers are critical in our system, and we respect the rule of law. Orders have to be moral, legal, ethical, all of the above. And that's something that we as officers are always trying to communicate with our subordinates, and that's something that we all hold very, very close to us.
So how much do you feel that swearing into the Constitution, not to any king or president or so on and so forth, ensures that the United States military is always going to be true to the right way to live life?
Keeping an army strong in a democracy is not an easy task. I mean, especially we're now in roughly the 50th year of the all-volunteer force. And since the advent of the all-volunteer force, you could basically, the burden is on the government to have citizens fulfill their obligations, right? And some who, the 1% who raise their right hand, we swear to the Constitution, and ultimately that is to protect the American people, and to not only to just physically protect the American people, to protect the American way of life. And there's a reason that that's in the Soldier's Creed, to protect the American way of life, and to never leave a fallen soldier. These are all things, the warrior ethos is critical to being a soldier, at least in the U.S. Army. And I know each service has its own way of saying the same thing, but our commitment is to each other, but also to the American people and the American way of life.
So do you feel that commitment to the Constitution which gives a freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and so much more, is a critical reason why it is so integral to serve the U.S. military, regardless of religious background or regardless of opinion, because the United States is the place that ensures you have that ability to have that opinion.
No, I mean, when you swear an oath to the Constitution, I mean, those who are intimately familiar with our Bill of Rights, I mean, you use freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, right? Like all the things that are built into our First Amendment, and the U.S. military, when we say we're protecting the American way of life and we're protecting the American people, we're also protecting their right to liberty. And this idea that you need security, you need order, but like liberty is something that is inherent within the American system. And we've debated liberty, especially as historians, over the entire course of our history, and like how much liberty is appropriate versus the need to have collective security. Protecting those values is something that is just part of being an officer, being a soldier.